The political debate surrounding the latest Gaza Flotilla incident has triggered another sharp exchange inside Israel's coalition government after National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir publicly criticized Foreign Minister Gideon Saar during a heated session in the Knesset. The confrontation unfolded after security forces intercepted activists linked to a new Gaza-bound flotilla operation at sea, an incident that quickly sparked strong reactions both inside Israel and internationally. The controversy intensified after images and video emerged showing detained activists kneeling with their hands restrained following the maritime interception. The footage immediately fueled criticism from opposition figures, rights groups, and international observers, while members of Israel's governing coalition defended the operation as a necessary security measure amid continuing regional tensions. Speaking during a Knesset plenary session in Jerusalem, Ben-Gvir delivered a forceful speech defending the actions of Israeli security organizations and accusing Gideon Saar of projecting weakness in front of Israel's adversaries. The far-right minister argued that Israel should no longer apologize for carrying out security operations or enforcing maritime restrictions connected to Gaza. During his address, tensions inside the chamber became visible as coalition lawmakers interrupted and protested parts of his remarks. Ben-Gvir at one point directly challenged Deputy Foreign Minister Sharon Haskell during the debate, highlighting growing divisions inside the government over how Israel should manage international criticism and diplomatic pressure linked to the Gaza situation. Ben-Gvir strongly defended the publication of the flotilla arrest footage and rejected criticism surrounding the images. According to him, Israeli officials should prioritize national security concerns above concerns over global reaction or diplomatic image management. The days when our country was the bullied child are over. The era when terrorists came wanting to harm us and we had to be full of apologies, kind, and inclusive is over, Ben-Gvir declared during the Knesset session. His comments immediately intensified political debate, particularly because they appeared directed not only at opposition lawmakers, but also at members of his own coalition government. Ben-Gvir specifically accused Gideon Saar of harming Israel's standing by showing what he described as excessive concern about international criticism connected to the flotilla operation. According to Ben-Gvir, public hesitation or diplomatic caution could send the wrong message during a period of heightened security concerns across the region. He argued that Israeli leaders must demonstrate strength and maintain deterrence rather than focus on how security operations are portrayed internationally. The latest dispute reflects broader disagreements inside Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's governing coalition, where ministers have increasingly differed over the balance between military policy, diplomacy, and international relations as the Gaza crisis continues to dominate regional politics. Ben-Gvir continued his criticism by suggesting that recent regional developments should have changed the thinking of officials who favor a softer diplomatic approach. Referring to the October 7 attacks and the broader security environment that followed, he argued that Israel could not afford what he described as signals of compromise or weakness. When the foreign minister of the State of Israel apologizes, he sends a message of weakness, a message of submission, a message of surrender, Ben-Gvir said during the debate. The minister also defended the interception operation itself, insisting Israeli authorities would continue preventing flotilla groups or unauthorized vessels from approaching Gaza if officials believe there are potential security risks involved. He claimed the operation was intended to protect Israeli personnel and prevent possible confrontations at sea. At the same time, critics inside and outside Israel question the handling of the activists and the release of the detention footage. Human rights organizations and some international observers argued the images could further damage Israel's global image at a time when scrutiny over Gaza operations remains extremely high. Inside the Knesset chamber, lawmakers could be seen reacting visibly during Ben-Gvir's remarks. Some coalition members protested his tone and criticism of Gideon Saar, while opposition lawmakers accused the minister of escalating divisions during an already sensitive period for the Israeli government. The disagreement also highlighted the increasingly public friction between hardline nationalist figures inside the coalition and ministers more focused on diplomatic engagement with international partners. Analysts in Israel have noted that divisions over foreign policy messaging have become more visible as international pressure regarding Gaza continues to grow. Ben-Gvir nevertheless doubled down on his position, insisting Israel's security institutions should receive full political backing for actions connected to border enforcement and maritime restrictions. He praised the organizations involved in the flotilla interception and said he remained fully supportive of their decisions. I am proud to be the minister responsible for the organizations that acted today against these supporters of terror, he said during the speech. He also praised Israeli security personnel involved in the operation, saying they would continue receiving his support regardless of criticism over the released images. The Gaza Flotilla issue itself has once again revived an internationally sensitive debate that has existed for years surrounding attempts by activist groups to challenge restrictions around Gaza through maritime convoys carrying humanitarian aid or political delegations. Previous flotilla incidents have frequently attracted global attention and diplomatic controversy, especially when confrontations occur between activists and Israeli forces. This latest incident unfolded against the backdrop of continuing instability across the region, where security concerns, humanitarian conditions, and diplomatic tensions remain deeply interconnected. Governments across Europe, the Middle East, and North America continue closely monitoring developments connected to Gaza and wider regional relations. The footage of activists kneeling with restrained hands became a particularly controversial aspect of the operation because of its symbolic and political impact online. Supporters of the operation argued the images demonstrated firm enforcement measures, while critics claimed the visuals risked inflaming tensions and increasing international criticism. Ben-Gvir rejected those concerns directly during his Knesset appearance. He argued that diplomatic caution should not override what he described as the need for clear security enforcement and strong deterrence policies. A state that cannot set borders, a state that cannot enforce the law, a state that does not govern invites its enemies to its doorstep, Ben-Gvir stated. His remarks reflected long-standing hardline positions that have defined much of his political career. Ben-Gvir has consistently advocated tougher enforcement measures, expanded security operations, and more aggressive responses to perceived threats against Israel. Meanwhile, Gideon Saar and other officials inside the coalition have generally attempted to maintain a stronger focus on international diplomacy and coordination with global partners, especially as pressure grows over the humanitarian situation in Gaza and broader regional stability. The exchange between the two ministers therefore represented more than a disagreement over one flotilla operation. Political observers in Israel described it as part of a wider ideological struggle within the coalition itself over how Israel should balance military policy, diplomatic relations, and global perception during an extended period of regional tension. The incident also comes as the Israeli government faces growing international scrutiny regarding security operations connected to Gaza. Several international organizations and foreign governments have repeatedly called for restraint, humanitarian access, and renewed diplomatic engagement aimed at reducing tensions. At the same time, Israeli officials continue emphasizing security concerns, arguing that restrictions and interception operations are tied to national defense priorities and efforts to prevent hostile activity. Within Israel, reactions to the Knesset confrontation appear divided along political lines. Supporters of Ben-Gvir praised his uncompromising rhetoric and his defense of security organizations, while critics accused him of inflaming tensions and damaging Israel's international standing through confrontational language. Opposition figures argued the public dispute inside the coalition exposed instability within the government during a highly sensitive regional moment. Some lawmakers also expressed concern that public disagreements between senior ministers could complicate diplomatic efforts, with foreign allies already voicing concern over Gaza-related developments. Despite the criticism, Ben-Gvir showed no indication of softening his position. Throughout his speech, he repeatedly emphasized that Israeli security personnel and military organizations should not face political hesitation when carrying out operations connected to national defense. He also suggested that concerns about international reaction should not determine Israeli security policy. According to him, governments that fail to enforce their borders or project strength risk weakening deterrence and encouraging future confrontations. The speech quickly generated major discussion across Israeli media and political circles, with commentators focusing both on the flotilla incident itself and on the increasingly visible tensions inside Netanyahu's coalition government. The maritime interception also renewed attention on the broader issue of Gaza access and humanitarian aid routes. Activist groups linked to flotilla campaigns have argued that such missions are intended to draw attention to humanitarian conditions and restrictions affecting Gaza residents. Israeli authorities, however, maintain that maritime controls are part of broader security enforcement measures. The latest flotilla confrontation, therefore, carried both operational and symbolic significance. For supporters of the activists, the incident represented another example of restrictions and forceful enforcement policies. For Israeli hardline officials like Ben-Gvir, it represented a demonstration of security control and national resolve. International reaction continued developing following the release of the detention footage. Several commentators and advocacy groups criticized the treatment of the activists and questioned the decision to publicly circulate the images. Others defended Israel's right to enforce maritime restrictions and protect its security interests. Inside the Knesset, the atmosphere during Ben-Gvir's remarks reflected the intensity of those wider debates. Coalition members interrupted portions of the speech while lawmakers exchanged criticism over both the operation and the minister's rhetoric. The public clash between Ben-Gvir and Gideon Saar may also carry longer-term political consequences inside Israel's governing alliance. Analysts noted that visible disagreements between senior ministers can deepen internal instability, especially as the coalition faces mounting domestic and international pressure connected to regional developments. Still, Ben-Gvir's supporters argue his rhetoric reflects frustration among voters who believe Israel should adopt a more uncompromising approach towards security issues and external criticism. Throughout the speech, Ben-Gvir repeatedly framed the flotilla incident as part of a larger struggle over deterrence, sovereignty, and national security policy. He insisted Israeli officials should remain focused on protecting the country rather than seeking international approval. "I am proud to support our fighters," he declared during the session, while defending the actions taken during the maritime operation. As debate continues, the flotilla incident has once again demonstrated how rapidly events connected to Gaza can trigger wider political disputes inside Israel and internationally. What began as a maritime interception operation quickly evolved into a major political confrontation involving senior government figures, coalition tensions, security policy debates, and international scrutiny. The coming days may determine whether the disagreement between Ben-Gvir and Saar remains limited to political rhetoric or develops into a deeper coalition dispute. For now, however, the controversy surrounding the flotilla operation continues drawing attention both inside Israel and abroad, with competing narratives emerging over security, diplomacy, and the broader direction of Israeli policy during a highly tense regional period.